This conference will now be recorded.
All right, we're going to call the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee meeting together. 10-9. Julie, can you do roll call, please?
Tracy Flukie, Kyle Jago,
Here.
Leroy Boyd, no, not here. I apologize. Jessica Atkinson, here. Dale Schmitz,
Here.
Tim Shannon, here. And we know Sharon.
Excuse me. Great. Just stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we need a motion on the agenda, action on the agenda. Any changes, otherwise I can motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Dale, I'll second. Second by Jessica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Action on the minutes of September 11th meeting. I'll move to accept. Second. Second by Jessica. Just two quick changes. Morgan Fuller is listed on there as a Bonner County resource manager, but she's actually a Bonner County board member.
I apologize. I thought that's what I.
And then the only other question I have, and maybe Joel could weigh in on this, Wello had sent me something to bring up at the meeting on September 11th, but I didn't get it in time. It came in at 2:20, so I don't know if it can be put in the record or not, Joel, because it wasn't mentioned at the meeting.
Why don't we, just for the sake of the fact that it came in late, if we can provide it as part of the update today, maybe, and then it would go into the meeting for today, then if that's okay. I think that would probably be most appropriate.
Yeah, okay, that'd be great. I'll hand it back. Okay, so you have a motion and a second on the minutes with just the one correction with Morgan Fuller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6 is comments from the public. They must be limited to items not on the agenda. Must state name and address. Limited to 5 minutes. Board goal is to listen and not discuss the item. Personal issues cannot be discussed nor individual's name, and board is not able to take action at this meeting. Is there anyone that wants to mention something that is not on the agenda? Okay. And we will continue. Reports and updates. Ashwaubenon Public Safety. I don't see Lieutenant Lovno is not here today. Do you have anything from him, Joe, or anybody else?
I did not get any updates from
Okay.
from the department.
Okay.
We did have one. Did we have one pedestrian?
There was a pedestrian incident that occurred in the last, I would say, month, but I think it was just down. It was actually a bicyclist, if I'm not mistaken.
That was a kid running cross country.
Oh, was there?
Yeah.
I'm not aware of that one. It's very well.
Okay.
So maybe
So I just don't know. Well, through the middle school grapevine, but that's what I guess. That's where I was curious how, because if it was with the cross country team or not, there's like, then there was talk to like the cross country kids about like what they can, if they need to be doing something differently as far as like visibility or making like training them on how they should be doing things, because he was the one in the wrong. I guess he cut across mid-black. So I don't know if there's something that we would. So that's what I didn't know. If maybe he could even just email us what the incident was, because I thought that'd be something maybe we can.
yes, maybe you could ask him to send us out something, Joel, about that incident. And if you thought there was a bike one too, Joel, maybe get that.
I thought there was. Brian, does that ring a bell to you? Or no?
It doesn't to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you can just check, and then if there's anything, just maybe just email it out to the committee. That would be great. Thank you. Brian, I know is here. Public Works Engineering Report. Brian, what would you need to add?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things we'll touch on a little bit more detail a little bit later in this meeting is just the Brookwood and Lombardi access road. Just kind of talking about the different concepts that we came up with. And then with that, the Alden Station Trail, if anybody's been out in that area, the contractor's been working on that for approximately a week now. Making some very good headway. With that, they're hoping to be paving, if everything goes as planned, third week in October here. So, assuming that we don't run into any challenges. And then the only other thing that we had on here was a bicycle and pedestrian wish list, which we kind of talked about last meeting. Those items were included in the capital improvement plan. which will then be included as part of the budget discussion, so.
Brian, I live on that Alden Station Trail. I think I've mentioned that before, but your communication from your department is just excellent, and you get a lot of compliments from my neighbors on that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's usually easier to be proactive than reactive. So I appreciate it.
I was out there the other night on a late Sunday night, and there were tons of people out there.
So
I mean,
many
it's
people.
so busy. It's really nice to see in the park and going towards Alden Station. And I came from the marina and then went out to Broadway, but there's a lot of people on it. So it's a nice bridge. It really looks nice. So well done. All right. Any other questions for Brian or any other comments, Brian, on your end?
Nothing at this time.
Did you take credit for that? The bridge? It does look nice. Glad it does.
It does look nice.
Do you
yes.
take credit for the little tulip chairs? Those are so cute.
Yeah.
They'll take credit for it.
Yeah. Someone put a post up about that and she had a picture of her sitting on a tulip chair. So it's the coolest thing. Yeah.
It's just something different, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they are cute. I had to sit in them too. So, yeah. Cool. Okay, and then how Park Rec? Anything else? Rex?
Just to tack on a few things that Brian was talking about for the trail. Really did a walk around the exterior of Ashwaubenon with Grafe and the landscape architect that will be working on the trail extension going behind Ashwaubenon Lake and then around the southern border against New Water. So they have a general idea where we're looking to put the trail, so they'll start making a mock-up of that this fall. So that's a good thing. That'll be the next step, obviously. The entryway to the Ashwaubenon River Trail adjacent to the Bay Harbor condominium entryway, we got a new sign that was installed this past month.
Looks good.
Two-sided.
Yeah,
We switched it so you can see it coming either way on Broadway
Thank you.
versus face on it. Yeah, no, that's why that was just installed.
Looks good.
Other than that, do you have any, you don't know, since McMahon is still working on Alden, they probably haven't started working on anything on the West Main Avenue extension, have they?
So yes, they are digging into that again. The only reason that I say that is because I don't know if you recall, but I had requested kind of a cost estimate from them so I could build it into the capital improvement plan. But they are picking it up. I know the last conversation, the last thing that they had asked about was, a 5-foot or 10-foot facility. And I don't know if there was any.
I think we're gonna try and go 10 foot from Ridge Road to Arts. And then if we continued from Arts to 41, because of the bridge already having a 5-foot sidewalk, we're probably gonna try and go sidewalk the remainder of that way.
So, and I think that's what it was. I think Steve found an email that said Arts, but potentially if we can get it to go to Ridge, the 10-foot facility and then 5-foot after that. But yeah, it sounds like somewhere there's going to be a transition, all just depending on what can fit with the
Where
existing.
the Arts is a cul-de-sac there, right?
Correct, to the south.
So from Ridge going eastward to Arts would be the 10.
Yep.
And then from Arts to Mid Valley Drive or whatever technically it is, where accommodations are already put in by the DOT, that would be the 5, I think.
Correct. And they McMahon was expressing concerns with potentially where the guardrail is and if there's enough room there, and I said, no, that's all stuff that we needed them to dig into further to see what they can make happen. So I think that's where they're at, just trying to
Well,
figure
people are already using that.
Right. So it's just a matter of.
I don't know if standards have changed, if they can continue to use it now that we officially make it usable in the future, if they can still have that guardrail or if that's going to be pushed in more, I don't know.
It might be that just the angle, the guardrail may just need to be, if it can, be pushed away from the roadway a bit, allowing for a little bit more room. Because there's that energy absorbing terminal, which is that big square thing on the end of guardrail, which I think might be protruding into the sidewalk a little bit.
Oh,
it may just mean that stuff all just needs to get pushed back.
A little reconfiguration.
Correct. So they're digging into that.
Okay, so that was a question, and then the other thing, it's not really any movement, but I mean, Stantec has done a preliminary route in Argonne Park. We're gonna do that crusher dust trail on the backside of Argonne, and then try and put some boardwalk through the woods to pop out closer to Cabela's off of Argonne. So they've already done a wetland delineation. And then they're working on, if they haven't completed already, a proposed route, which I haven't had a chance to. We have to call Stantec and walk that route with them yet, just to see how that would turn out. But that would, most of that woods is going to be wetland, so most of it would be boardwalk, which is not the cheapest to put in, so we need to see how that works out cost-wise. That's the Park and Rec report.
Can I ask you a question in regard to the Ashwaubenon? Have you had meetings with New Water and like Brown County Fairgrounds and extending that? Is there any discussion on that yet, or how that's going, or haven't you really gone there yet?
We met with New Water about a month ago. That's probably the third meeting we've had with New Water. They're fully on board with it.
Nice.
And then the fairground is actually wants us to get the project moving faster than it's, because they'd like to get that taken care of and have that connection. So that's obviously that's already in their master plan, but I told them it probably would not be in 24, but it might be ready for them to do something in 25.
Any other questions for Rex? Anybody? Thanks, Rex. I will just give you the Wello stuff that we got for the last meeting. She just updated on the Yield to Your Neighborhood campaign. Sorry, the Friday event. The first one was on June 22nd. We had 70 mornings, 712 vehicles yielded correctly. So it was a 91% compliance rate, and Ashwaubenon did participate in that one, so it went very well. The second event was on August 31st. 104 warnings were given, 620 vehicles yielded correctly, 86% compliance rate. Ashwaubenon was not able to participate in that one. And the final Frogger was on October 4th, and coincided with National Walk and Roll to School Day, and Ashwaubenon did not participate in that one either. So that was a report from Wello from last month, and I did not have anything unless again it's in my computer and I didn't get it on time.
I believe we made school passes again for the schools.
Oh, did you?
Walk
Oh,
to
good.
School Day. I'll throw that in too.
Okay.
Tracy, do you mind? Could I have that hard copy?
Yes.
I appreciate
Yes,
it.
that would be great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Nothing else. We will go on to items for discussion and possible action. 8A is the consider, discuss, act on Lombardi Access Road pedestrian accommodation layout. I don't know if Brian's handling that or Joel, whichever one. Both are yours.
I can run with that one. That's something that schools have to pull up on the screen. I haven't thought through, so I can get started with these. So the very first one that I'll touch on, I'll just get in front of everyone here, is this isn't necessarily the Lombardi access road. This is Brookwood Drive. This one's a little bit cut and dry, pretty easy. All the accommodations on the north side of the road. Just to give you guys a little bit of a layout here. So this is Metro Market. Here's Argonne. Rex has seen all this, so we saw it this morning. Cabela's is over here. Lombardi Ave is here.
Is this the new, just got the Green Bay right
It
there,
is,
or am I
yeah.
off?
No, you're exactly on. So the way that this is kind of laying out, pedestrian accommodation is on the north side. Reason for that is there's various different conflict points on this south side, you know, with all the driveways and stuff like that. There is an existing accommodation in Titletown currently that kind of just dead ends at this time. So it essentially would be looking to just kind of extend that all the way through. There is going to be, I would say, about 10 trees that will have to be removed, street trees. You can kind of see their silhouettes of them here, here, and there. Along with that, there's quite a few other utilities that will have to get relocated. More just showing you guys to kind of just see, so you can see where we're at. If you guys have any feedback, I'd be open to it. This was included also in your packet. you have any thoughts, by all means, let me know, and we can try to incorporate it into the design. But this one's a little bit more cut and dry, a little bit easier than Lombardi access road.
I really like it on that side. I live on Corbett Road, there's a sidewalk, and boy, those people ride their bikes on that all the time, and every driveway is a problem.
Right. Yep. Yeah, the other thing too is I think some of these are duplexes, and some of them, their driveways get kind of full, even outside of Packer games. You can kind of see it in some of these photos where I'd be somewhat concerned that people would be parked right on the sidewalk just because they have trucks, trailers, campers, whatever.
So is the sidewalk, I'm sorry, is the sidewalk a 5-foot
Yes.
concrete sidewalk?
Correct.
And is there a terrace between the sidewalk and the roadway? And how big is the terrace?
5 feet, 5-foot sidewalk, 5-foot terrace is what we're shooting for right now.
And that'll be grass.
Correct.
Okay.
Desirable is that we can get the terrace to be more than that, but unfortunately, because of right of way, we will be restricted. And there is fence, especially behind Metro Market. There's a fence right on the right of way. So we're gonna have some challenges trying to work our way through that, but hopefully.
And the property owners will be responsible for clearing that in the winter.
Yes.
So it'll be open year round, obviously, it's a sidewalk, so it'll be open year round. Okay. And the crossings, so you have the crossing to the east, or 2 of them, and then the one here.
Correct.
What will that look like in the road?
So just
white lines,
yeah.
or will we have
white lines.
lines? So
Yep.
just the 2.
Yep,
Two
just the
lines.
2 6-inch white lines.
So that'll be on all 3 of them. That'll be the same.
Correct. Yep. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll move on.
You might have said, but what is the level of awareness of the property owners that's going in?
At this time, we've let them know that we're going to be coming out to do survey, just to let them know that the project's coming. We do plan on, I would say, end of November, have a public informational meeting, kind of receive input. The reason that we're waiting until that point is we want to have the conversations because we're putting an accommodation here and an accommodation there. Want to get the feedback from the committee here, and then also talk to the DOT and the county, because they do have control over the access road. So once we hear from the county and the state as to what their blessing is one way or another, then we'll reach out to the different business owners that'll be impacted. The reason for that is don't want to show all of the options, especially if some of the options aren't able to be actually, designed or approved by the county.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
So when we get here, I was gonna go and check this out.
Mhm.
There is no sidewalk on the east side of Argonne here, correct?
There's not.
So there's just the one on the west side, and there's nothing, no crosswalk up by Discover Green Bay now, correct?
There's
There's
not.
nothing there.
This will be, with the exception of whatever we do up by the access road, this will be the first crossing south of Lombardi.
And there's a sidewalk on the west side that runs from Morris, I think, all the way around the Park Place. One
Yeah,
continuous sidewalk.
doesn't it go west towards, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Bridge.
It goes to Park Place, yep,
yeah, so I think it's good that there's no sidewalk on the east side. Because you want, people are gonna be using that sidewalk anyway.
The one concern I have with the knocking on the east side is they just built this beautiful Discover Green Bay building there.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people that are gonna be walking up to it. And now if you're coming from the east, you have to cross Argonne, get on the sidewalk on the west side, and then try to get back to Discover. There is no good crossing at the Cabela driveway going across to the Discover Green Bay. And I've been up there a couple different times, and there are a lot of people that are crossing right there to try to get to the new Discover Green Bay. So that's my concern on not having that on the east side, because I think people, coming this way, they would just beef up, just head up that way.
Right.
And they can't. I mean, they could, they go up to the parking lot in the grass if they're able-bodied, but, and that mid-block one really worries me, because I've seen so many people crossing there already. By Cabela's and the new Discover Green Bay.
So our hope says when we start talking about the Lombardi access road, the pedestrian accommodations there,
Yep.
that we would provide some sort of crossing a little bit further to the north.
And I know that was in there, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
so we can
That's just
talk
my
about
concern
that.
mid-block too. Because you know, people don't want to walk. I mean, they're gonna cut quick, so, okay.
Anything more about this one before I move on to access road? All right, Jill? Yeah, I'll present that first. So the first roll plot that I have here, so we were previously looking out on Brookwood, so you're down here. Now, so you have a little bit of variance. Right here is Lombardi. Over here is Cabela's, Metro Market, Discover Green Bay, gas station. What this is showing you here is essentially accommodation strictly on the north side of the access road. There's definitely some pros and cons to it. One of the reasons why we're bringing it as a point of discussion is I know there was some conversation about foot traffic during Packer games, just trying to get the level field. It may address that. Some of the disadvantages to this is that, you know, the day-to-day users that are using the facilities that are here, for them in order to use the sidewalk, they would have to cross the access road. We're showing this as an option, not saying that right, wrong, or indifferent, but it is something that we could do. This is something to keep in mind is when we start looking at the accommodations strictly on the south side, we do get very, very tight in right away when you get down here towards the gas station. And you'll be able to see that once I show the drawings of the south side. So one of the disadvantages to crossing here is going to be very challenging. You have various lanes. You have a free flow right turn lane. Vehicles traveling at a pretty good rate of speed. Sat here and observed the traffic. People come sailing around this corner. So if that pedestrian's not aware of that, there's kind of a large distance. They're almost crossing. I think I measured it was like 52 feet that they're crossing here, and then it's like 40 something feet on this side. So it's definitely a long crossing. Along with that, the intersection is not set up for it. So the traffic loops and everything that are below the pavement are in the wrong spot. So you'd have to do a lot of retrofit in that intersection. Along with that, the intersection isn't programmed for pedestrian accommodations. So, which is quite different than when you come down here to Marley. If you see Marley, already has a crosswalk in it. That cabinet's all set up for it. Traffic control is already laid out to kind of help with that type of configuration. So,
Do you need that big of radius on Argonne Street coming from the west? I mean, why
This
was
one
it?
here?
Yeah, I mean, how many trucks and delivery, you know what I mean? Could that radius be made smaller so your crossing isn't as intense as it is right now, and the free flow, then it could go through there so fast too as part of the project?
it
Slow them down?
could. I don't know why that radius is so big. It's not like I ran any turn movements on it to see what it looks like, but visually looking at it, it's probably bigger than what it needs to be. I don't know if there's some reason that they designed it like that originally.
Tracy, did you speak to the west side of Argonne, the radius on Lombardi?
Yeah,
I think the county and or DOT would have some dictate on that as well. So I think
Right.
ideally it could be a tighter radius, but
I mean, with slow vehicles down, you know,
Right.
they be able to go hit it as fast, so.
my point is just that I don't know that we may not have an opportunity to have a say in it either. So
You could ask though, right?
we could ask.
Could ask.
So a question then on that, so that intersection has lights,
Does.
correct? But there's no provisions for any pedestrians, so there's no push buttons, there's no nothing.
No.
There.
There's no ramp here either. That's why you can see it being added here, but yeah, there's no ramp. So the timing, the push for the controller that controls the intersection, it's not set up for pedestrian accommodations. So
That's too bad.
yeah, to get it there.
Yeah.
it would be pretty costly. I mean, these are county signals. These are not village-owned signals. Generally, I mean, unless you will use an outlier like Oneida, but generally the county's intersections don't design for pedestrians unless there's a strong push from the municipality. So they focus on the movement of vehicles, unfortunately. All right. Any other questions on this one? Otherwise, I'll move to something that maybe a little bit spark up some more conversation anyway.
So where are we leaving it on that big intersection, right? Because that's concerning.
That is concerning. Because you have a path coming from the west already.
Right.
The whole neighborhood, Park Place and everything can come through there, and like you said, get to Lambeau or get to the entertainment area. And we now have a lit intersection with stop and go lights that does not accommodate that.
Yeah, we're designing for walkability.
Right, and then we're having an intersection that doesn't allow for it. It doesn't allow for it well, I guess.
Which we could. It's just there'd be
I know.
high costs that would be associated with it.
Yeah, but you know what?
So.
If you would do it right.
Right.
Yeah, you know?
Okay, so I got a few more other
Okay.
options that I'll show. And
We would have right turn, no stop is what it is.
Yeah. Well, and the radius
Why
being
not
so big, and then they can really
Make
hit
it
it
a-
hard and fast.
And it doesn't mean it's coming off the highway, so it has its own, like, there's no stop anywhere. You just come off the highway and you come right through. It has its own lane that continues through there. So that's why I'm wondering if the radius has to do with that.
so that lottery ticket.
Highway and then what they probably be able to do is sustain over the traffic.
Spend all your goodwill right now.
Is my guess. That makes it even
Okay.
more.
Hey, there's someone standing here. You should really be stopping.
Look, are those similar to the ones on Ridge and Oneida, would you say?
Ridge.
And the ones on Cormier? By Titletown District, is that, those are?
Yep.
those are
So a good example would be like Cormier, Santa Barbara, Cormier, Shady. What were some of the other ones?
On Ridge, right between the stadium and
Yeah, the big
Titletown,
ones.
the big ones.
Yeah.
And
So-
then there's one on Oneida too, I think, right?
So Ridge by Titletown, that's close. It's not technically a hawk, but that's a little bit more of a, it's overhead, a little bit more in depth. I probably wouldn't recommend that just due to the cost.
Yeah.
I would recommend just kind of the post mounted ones with the push buttons, which would, the closest thing that I can say to that would be with Cormier and Shady, Cormier and Santa Barbara. So, I think there is one maybe also on Pilgrim by like Best Buy, maybe
Yes.
mid-block.
Yeah, yeah.
I think of any. I can only think of the ones that we have problems with. So there could be ones other places I'm just not aware of them because they've been working. I haven't had it
Don't
fixed.
worry about it.
Yep. Okay, so touching on this a little bit more. So we just spoke about the mid-block crossing here. Allows for a little bit of a shorter distance that you're crossing. You're not crossing various different lanes. You got 2 lanes on one side, 3 on the other. You do have a refuge area in the middle, so you don't have to cross all 5 lanes at once.
How wide is that refuge area, do you know? Yeah,
I don't know off the
Okay.
top of my head.
Okay.
I'm hoping it's 5 feet by 5 feet. Otherwise, we'd have to do. So.
And that goes all the way up then, right, to the intersection that,
Right.
of the island?
The island stops a little bit short of it, so we'd be making it a little bit longer to put this refuge area.
Okay.
So, it is kind of set up that currently if someone's going southbound on Argonne, that they shouldn't be turning onto the access road, but it's kind of short enough where if you have a small enough car, you can actually make that movement. I've seen people do that before. So, Anyway, so now we're on the south side. Some of the disadvantages is, of course, you're crossing multiple driveways. But the big advantage with that is you're crossing the driveways or you're generating all the people. So the people that are using the facilities, obviously that's kind of a good thing. So makes the most sense that way. Where we run into challenges is down here. We get very, very tight on right of way. And in speaking with some of the business owners, when we let them know that we're going to be coming out to do some surveying, they want this trail to essentially be as wide as possible. So, or sidewalk, you know, they say 6 feet. Can you make it 10 feet? The challenge is, yeah, we'd love to make it 10 feet, but that means you're going to have to give us some right of way. And that's where I think we're going to potentially run into some challenges. But yeah, that's essentially, so you're coming across, this is all pretty straightforward until you get to about this point here where you can see the terrace goes away. Snow storage is obviously going to be an issue. You know, where do we go with the snow that we fall off the road? Where do they go with the snow if they fall off the sidewalk? So that would be challenging. This crosswalk here is pretty straightforward. Right now we were looking to see if we could get a little refuge area in the middle of that. It's not laying out all that well when we're looking at turn movements. When you run a 53-foot trailer through here, we would have to make the refuge island mountable because the truck would actually have to drive over a portion of it in order to make the turn. So
It's not as far across the street though.
It's not.
That's just like a norm, you know.
Correct.
I feel like that's not as.
Yeah. Intense.
Yep.
Is that a right in, right out only? That
Yes.
intersection?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you have less. Yep.
Yeah, left turners aren't coming in there.
Yep, it's very predictable. If someone's familiar with the intersection, they're going to know exactly where the cars are coming and going from. So there's less
Would you
movement.
put any kind of, no, it's an intersection, so you wouldn't have to put you wouldn't put RFB or anything like that in there, okay?
No, probably just leave it as is. And then you just come up to where the intersection's already set up for pedestrians. One of the recommendations that we got from public safety this morning, we were talking about is seeing if there was an option to run the sidewalk around, potentially put another mid-block crossing on Marley. We may dig into that a bit further. However, we want to have a discussion with Titletown because then you're going to be kind of dumping people into a parking lot, which usually isn't what you want. You want to have some sort of designated route. So.
That would be like in the back of like that CLA building and like the Titletown Flats right there, right?
It would be, yep. If you could kind of get the lineup, so you kind of walk up towards the podium, you know, between the two buildings and head up. I don't know if if there'd be a desire to have all that traffic coming through that area, but maybe that's the conversation we'll have to have with them. So right now they do have everything set up that this sidewalk goes across. It comes into their parking lot, it goes across. Then like by Hinterland and stuff, there's already a sidewalk there that it would connect to. So.
And you can go the other way, you get to Brookwood, and we're putting a new sidewalk in Brookwood.
Good, yep, definitely.
Yeah, is there sidewalk down on the west side?
Well, I don't think there's a sidewalk here, but Brookwood comes down here, so.
Right.
Yep.
You know, we just looked at the sidewalk from Brookwood.
There is no sidewalk on the east or west side of Marley, but Brookwood, once you cross Marley, there is a section of sidewalk that would need to be installed, but then it picks up
by
the
the
latter
Titletown?
part of Brookwood through the Titletown district behind the
Okay,
townhomes.
so like where that island is, that's where you have to put some in then? So this would be again a 5-foot sidewalk and a terrace area, 5-foot terrace area is what you're
That's
shooting for?
Yep, that's what you're seeing it right now.
What would the
Concrete,
owners
yeah.
want?
They just say because of the pedestrian volume. It is, you know, if you're walking, you know, say with your significant other or whatever, walking on a 5-foot sidewalk is tight. I mean, it's not like there's an abundance of space. You can do it, but say you're walking with a friend and you're not walking shoulder to shoulder, you want to, you know, potentially have it be a little bit wider. I'm assuming that's it, but.
There's a lot of groups, and I guess especially like with the visitor center and going back and forth, you're going to find out by yourself, like you're with people.
So is this open? Can I say something?
If someone wants to make motion to open the floor,
I'll make a motion to open the floor.
I'll second.
motion second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go ahead, Dan. Say name and address, please.
1221 Lombardi, let's use that. So one big thing that I don't think any of the business owners knew was Brookwood getting a sidewalk.
Okay.
Okay, that's a big plus. So the biggest problem here is during events at Titletown and at the stadium when they have the football game. So Titletown district obviously is getting a little busier and their parking's starting to flow over and people are going to these restaurants here and then they're walking in the Titletown district. So they're leaving their cars there. So one thing Titletown district did, they were very smart. They put one entrance in the middle of Marlee here. And I understand, I'm sure that's why public safety is like, hey, we got to figure out a way to get there. Because that's, I mean, when people ask us how to get to the stadium, we send them to those steps, the podium. So what's happening on the football game for events, like they're starting to have those concerts and they're having this stuff at the football field and all that stuff. The people are walking just down these parking lots all along here, and then they get here and they're confused. They really are. None of them want to walk away from the district, so they're not. And this is really bad right now because there's nothing here. It just ends right there, and this is a ditch. So they're crossing Marlee everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere. So somebody is going to get hurt sooner or later. So them asking you to funnel them to that podium makes a lot of sense.
No, and I think we're in support of that as long as we can get it to fit with our existing right of way and then get Titletown to be okay with it.
Well, so I said this sitting on site plan when we were doing all this. This sidewalk should go all the way to their lot. So they should have had a sidewalk in here all along. Because they got a sidewalk around the whole thing except for it stops right here. So they should have had a sidewalk along here no matter what. And we need to have a sidewalk somewhere along Lombardi access. The one thing, I don't know, did I talk to you?
You probably talked to me or Trey.
This is county right here.
It is.
So I think if we went to the county and said, hey, look at guys, we need more room on this, they'd probably give us that land.
And they might. The one thing, so we did have a preliminary meeting with the county. They did let us know that this intersection can't move any closer to Lombardi, along with this one.
Yeah,
I don't want it any closer. So I think getting land for the accommodations isn't going to be a problem at all. It's more just, these are kind of fixed points.
Yep, and I think they should be. But this is not a very tight turn right now. So if we made this and then had the road come over here, we'd pick up an awful lot of, no, they're going to replace this road.
Correct.
So we're going to
As part of this project?
storm sewer
Oh, I
and
didn't
everything.
know that, okay.
So we could actually move this road over 5 feet, just making that a little tighter turn and this a little tighter turn. And we wouldn't even have to hear much. And then we can come along here, curb and gutter all the way along here. And then get the space for snow and maybe a 6-foot walk or a 7-foot walk. Because I'm sure the county will give us this.
And they will. They will.
Gave it to the Packers, they'll definitely give it to Ashwaubenon. So then we could do this whole boulevard thing along here and make this all really nice. As long as we're doing the road, why don't we finish it? This is all curb and gutter along here. I mean, this is created wetlands, so I'm sure we could almost get them to just walk away from it.
Right.
Run a storm sewer pipe along the whole thing. And then I think, this is my opinion from being there for 45 years.
No, that's good. I like the history.
There should be sidewalk around this whole thing. So it should come down here, it should come down here, and it should come down there. Because Titletown and District, they purposely made it so there's no parking. I mean, there's no parking for anybody. So they're parking everywhere else. They're parking on the streets and they're walking. So
Safer for people to walk.
yeah, so I mean, and there's no stopping them because it's just a mess. And I'm sure it hurt somebody. So I personally think this sidewalk should go all the way around on this side. This should be connected to the sidewalk that's there now. The only question I got is, you showed that one, and then there's this one. That takes them off because I'll tell you, just sitting there, these guys are coming around this corner. They're not looking for anybody right there. you're just looking to make this corner. When you move it down here, it seems to me like it would give the pedestrian and the rider a chance, because that's just a free right turn. I mean, if there's a green light here, they just go right around it. So I don't know why you think use this combination where to come down here and get in here somewhat and make a crossing here.
Yep, no, that's.
Because this looks dangerous as hell.
Maybe if you guys have, I can move on to that drawing, or we can.
Yeah, does anybody have any other questions? And Danny, if you have anything else to say,
No, I just wanted to tell you
I'm glad you're here.
the pedestrian walks around this whole
Mm-hmm.
thing would be very good, along with the Packers connecting theirs.
Dan, just make sure I understand you. So all the way around there and on this side of this road.
No. But see where we run into right away from to put a, I think there should be an 8-foot walk here.
Yeah.
6 would be hell a lot better than 5-footers. Because what happens is, think about it. You go to the football game, there were 4 or 5 people, and they're all walking together. But even so, like, a 5-foot walk is tough, especially with the scooters that are those little electric skateboard things. I know, but so a minimum 6. But the biggest thing is, we're trying to fit this in here because this is county land. I think the county would give us this and let us do whatever we want. We can move this road. See, we're redoing the whole road from roughly here to roughly here. We can move the whole road this way as much as we really wanted, but I would say 6 feet, which would give us more green space here and more sidewalk. Maybe 6-foot sidewalk with 6 or 7 feet of green space. Because they're going to be walking in the green space on the football games. Maybe not, and we're talking about 15 times a year, but still, it's 15 times.
So move the road and expand the width of the walkway.
That would be as long as the county, which I think all we gotta do is ask them, have Mary ask Troy if we can have that, they'll probably just hand it.
So
after they pay for the road.
Yeah, they gotta build the road first.
Yeah. So the one thing that I'll touch on, so the road itself right now is 34 feet wide. So it's 17 feet and 17 feet. The one thing that is kind of that you're seeing here is we're putting the road on a little bit of a diet, so we're 14 and 14 now. Because right now there's a huge gravel shoulder. We don't allow for parking on either side of the road, and the road, it's just big because I think there was a standard back then to just have it be big like that. So our thought was, if you see the typical cross section, that we would kind of go to 14 and 14. The standard lane is 12 feet. Just so you guys have an understanding. So you're still a little bit wider than a standard lane, but it is sliding everything this way somewhat already. So we are kind of already somewhat doing that because the road is so wide and there's such a wide gravel shoulder. So the road core or base is already there. We're just pushing everything that way. And that's something that we can continue to look to do. How much can we push it that way? We are looking to add curb and gutter on that north side. Currently, there's curb and gutter on the south side. But we would put the curb and gutter on the north side also, give us that urban cross section.
And then we could beautify this other area too if we put a storm. They put storm sewer all the way up to here. So I'm sure we can get it over here.
Yeah, that's one thing.
Curb and gutter.
Yeah, no, awesome. The one thing that we are doing 2 weeks from now, we'll be doing a wetland delineation to figure out, where the wetlands are, and then with that, they always go back to see what is artificial wetlands. I've been told by a lot of people that, yeah, these are artificial wetlands. It's not a true wetland. And if they're artificial, you can usually get an exemption for them. So
this looks exactly like what the Packers have from here originally. So they actually bought it from the county. So this access road is around, and this is exactly what it looked like along there. So we've already
cleaned it up.
So this is the last section to clean up.
Okay, any other questions on this design, anybody? Or you have 1 or 2 more, right?
I do. Yep, I got 2 more. Yes. I'll leave that one up there just to let me.
One of the concerns that I had, you've already addressed, was getting across that intersection. I was going to bring up having a light there. You already said, so that was.
Which intersection, Pat? What are you talking about? The one down?
The last one we just looked at, when it crosses, it crosses right there, and he wanted to put a flashing light there. And that was my concern.
You do like this or you don't?
Well, I like that if you put a light there. To me, that was the big flaw. That was people going to come around that corner and they were going to accelerate. And
Is it too close to have RRFBs that close to the intersection on Lombardi and Argonne, or does that meet the criteria?
I would have to dig into it, but I do not think it's too close.
I was just thinking if people come around the corner, yeah, you know, it's not that far down, I wouldn't think, but I didn't know what the criteria was, but.
Yeah, it's all based on speed, and I can look into that further.
what's the speed limit on that road?
I think it's 25, but when I'm out there, it doesn't feel like anyone's going that fast. So
On the
kind
city
of
lanes.
eating my words here. I feel like it's 25, but I feel like people are going 40, 45.
Because you're coming off the highway and you don't have to stop coming off the
Right.
highway because it's its own lane. And then you're coming and turning. It's like they don't even slow down until they're probably up here on the block.
Or you're in the Cabela's parking lot.
Exactly. Yeah, about this parking lot. Yeah.
So this is kind of a little bit more building on what Dan was kind of talking about. So it does have the mid-block crossing, so you kind of could have a rapid flashing beacon here. The question is, you know, if there is a strong desire to kind of go towards the podium, you know, would we still extend this at least this way to get to the podium? But that is, the reason why we're showing this is that we run into a lot of the right-of-way issues towards the east end. It kind of is a solution if we're having issues trying to squeeze that sidewalk in that little area that's there.
So why did you change on this one compared to the last one? Why did you change the other end?
This end,
Yeah.
it's just how it appears through them.
Oh.
It's not that it has to be, you can take a mixed
Yeah.
configuration of any of them. So I mainly brought this one up to show you this here.
So the only thing I would say on this, for sure, we'd want to extend that to here, so that at least they can get it into this parking area. Without cutting across grass or anything like that, because we were doing that. I don't know my feelings on, you know, I don't have any more right away to give that. I've been there 40 years and I've given right away 3 times. Because this just keeps getting wider, and the Packers have too, so maybe, so I don't know, we're pretty much full here. I mean, we'd have a sidewalk on a curb. There virtually would be nowhere to put it.
But in that, I mean, snow removal is going to be a challenge. I mean,
Well, we have that at university. Anyway, university's right on the curb, so.
I just know hauling snow is usually not a preference.
Yeah,
So
it's not. We're getting less and less snow nowadays.
that's very true.
We put most of the snow down here nowadays, but still, I mean, and again, we're talking about 15 times snow events, 15 times a year at the most, so. I mean, we deal with it on university, I don't know. I just think it would be a lot safer to have sidewalk, even if it's on the curb.
Yeah.
Cause I know public safety is just having a heart attack after the game. Before the game, it's kind of,
Broke up a little bit.
yeah,
but
you got 3 hours of them showing up, but after the game, this is just a disaster. You got all the cars trying to get out, now with the stupid night games they have, it's dark, and then all these people are trying to walk around.
I was going to ask, where are people going to want to walk?
Whatever
Well, I mean, we
shortest.
we can sit here and argue and debate and decide, but we have to, where are they going to want to walk?
Oh, they're definitely gonna walk, if we did this plan, they're definitely gonna walk through all this parking lot, and then they're gonna be crossing like they are now. They cross at this driveway, and then the driveway for the strip center.
I agree with where they're shortest, but also Titletown looks so nice that they're gonna wanna walk up the middle of it if they can.
It's really though, they designed it for that,
Yeah.
but that's really the safest option to send. That's where we send them. When they come and say, well, how do we get the state? We send them there because it's really the safest option. Either they're walking around along Lombardi, through a parking lot, or, people down here are already using the Titletown sidewalk along Brookwood. So these people are just.
Do you think it's gonna be an issue? I mean, obviously from a business owner standpoint, if we have walked through here to keep people from parking on the sidewalk, say, because it's gonna probably be back curb nearly to your parking lot. Granted, it looks like you have full head curb there,
Curb and gutter,
so they won't be able to get out
yeah.
and have to drive over the curb.
It's curb and gutter, and streets curb and gutter. So it would be. Yeah, not saying they won't do it.
Well, right, but
If you put
you're
an
gonna
8-foot
say-
in there, if we put an 8-footer in there, they're gonna pull on there, but if you set your 5. I can't predict.
So, just to kind of summarize before we get too far into it, going back to this intersection here, are we in agreement that kind of doing the mid-block with a rapid flashing beacon is going to?
Yes.
I would say.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one thing I would say on that.
Yep.
I would suggest you check with the intersection, because if someone is walking and they want to go southbound on Argonne, they are not going to cross up north. I'm sorry, I'm going back through. If they want to, I'm going backwards here. You were saying that they want to have the closest way to get there. And if someone, they're going westbound, they're going to want to cross, they're not going to want to go north to go south. And I'm looking at my directions and I'm mixing up on which way I'm trying to say here. There's one direction I keep walking, but they'll have to go north to come back south to get to a safe crossing of Argonne. And I'm looking at it and I'm spacing out because I saw it before.
I think you're seeing that they're gonna come back here just to come down here to come back across.
No, I was just thinking, I'm disregard. I'm trying to think of where the heck that was. I was thinking.
I think that was on the other, if it was on
in
the
the
top.
north.
Yeah, if it was on the north, you wouldn't be able to come down, so you'd have to go back. But
Yeah.
being on
Yeah.
this side of it, then I think it works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah, then they have to go.
here I think you're fine, because they're gonna come to this side anyways for the cross, like the.
Yeah, to go across there. I would love to see them check on there's no reason you can't have both of those crossing there. And have
So-
safe crossing from there and then one at the intersection, because you have lights at that intersection. It's a lot safer to have a pedestrian crossing at a lighted intersection than it is. Even our RFPs are safe, but a lighted intersection is that much safer. But again, you have a huge radius up there.
Yeah,
Which
that's the
is
free
bad.
flow speed
Yeah,
is
which
what.
is bad. If, and again, that's a lot of money.
And you have to
Changing.
reprogram those lights.
You would. But they should be handicapped, they should be pedestrian safe anyway. You should be able to cross that as a pedestrian.
I would feel safer crossing down here though, just because of how much is going on up there and even just all the different traffic coming, like these go that way, this comes this way, these come in and then they can only come this way. Those are going straight, so those aren't kind of coming into this, but there's just there's cars going in so many directions. I feel like
It's such a wide
getting
intersection.
them away from that to try to figure it out. 'Cause, people don't make great decisions.
No, they do not, no.
Just take that option away from them.
Yeah.
That speed curve we want to do.
And
And
just that-
41, come off 41 on.
That's exactly what it's like.
Could be that.
And then
That's
that
exactly
sidewalk
what it's
goes
like.
somewhere else.
I would just be concerned that so what Dan is asking, going back to the Brookwood, is you don't put any crossing here. You run the sidewalk all the way around, and these individuals would have to come down to Brookwood and cross there.
You don't think they would?
I think it might be too long.
The same individuals that drive over your curb and.
Yeah.
The ones you
I was
can't
just-
predict.
So if I'm hearing it right, this is the majority consensus is being the most safe, making the most sense.
So our RFPs there, and then you have a median as well,
Mhm.
so you have that.
So it's
safety.
2 lanes of traffic that you're crossing. The traffic can only be coming from your left or
Yep.
from the north.
Yep.
And then you get here, you have traffic that's coming from the south. You may have some coming out of this intersection, but, correct, you're only crossing those 3 lanes. Okay, and then keeping it on the south side, making it as wide as possible, if possible. This was all pretty straightforward until we get down here, and this is a conversation we need to have a little bit more with Titletown is, does it make sense to run it all the way around? Also have a conversation with Dan, see if we can get it to fit in there to get the people to the podium.
How much further?
Crossing,
I'm sorry,
go ahead.
No, I was just saying, how much farther, if you haven't crossed into the podium, how much farther approximately to Brook, except Brook down?
You're about halfway.
Yeah, podium's almost half.
So it'd be nice to have that way down.
And maybe it is that we can fit a, say 6 or 8 foot accommodation along here. Maybe here's where it'll have to skinny up to 5 feet just to get through here.
I personally think when they get to here, they're gonna walk through here.
That's what I say. I feel like they're gonna come over here, they're not gonna go that way.
And on the football games, we have people out on the parking lot,
So is our thought, going back, putting them mid-block or trying to get them up to here if possible?
I think you would try to go to there, because they're gonna come this way, like we said. Honestly, I just don't think people are gonna utilize that the same way, because they're not gonna come to cross up here and go down, like you said. I think they start seeing Titletown through here, and they wanna get right to it.
Especially if you're gonna continue the sidewalk down on the south side, or on the west side of Marlee and heading south, then I think you're gonna have a lot more people going that way instead of crossing.
And if we have a goal here, then we're putting them down Lombardi.
Right, and that's what I don't think they're gonna.
Yeah, they're not
There's a
gonna,
sidewalk over there.
there's a sidewalk over there.
Yeah.
I know there's a
Yeah.
sidewalk over there, but if people aren't gonna wanna do it. They're gonna wanna take the shortest route.
So
I don't think that's ever. When we go
I think we're going back at this one.
enter into. I think if you get the Packers to do this, and then there's a cross somewhere here to the podium, that most people aren't gonna cross this and cross that. We might even be, well, I know they got this in here. I think this would be less dangerous because there'd be less people here. If we get the Packers to agree to something. They know they got a problem. I mean, they know they do.
And you've got this boulevard that runs down the middle of this street. And as a pedestrian, now some are gonna try to run across that, but there's kind of a barrier there.
Once you get on the other side of where you enter into Titletown
Yeah.
District, it's pretty, the other thing you guys all gotta remember is there's a curve there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of gonna have to be almost right on the edge of our property right here to get across. Safe. So, we can have the public safety.
So I agree with you that that's the very best choice, is this, I'm thinking about after games. I think going to games, people wouldn't do this and this. I think after games, they might come down that Lombardi, heading this way.
Yeah, they stop at Hindeland or stuff.
Well, there's also the Packers and they're adding more. They got parking all along here. From basically where the office building is up is all pre-sold. And then from the office building back around all here is for general public. And a lot of these people cross to go to, they park here and they cross to go to these restaurants. And then they cross again. So I said all along that we need to connect this sidewalk right here. Because you also got all these parking lot people moving and nowhere to store anybody. And at least on the sidewalk, they can stand on the sidewalk
Right.
before somebody
Yeah.
lets them cross.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so if I'm hearing
I
it,
don't
what
wanna
people
cut
are
all the
thinking
pretty
is
trees.
this end with the mid-block RRFBs, the other end out to Marlee, and then look at bringing the sidewalk past Mr. Cameron's property and getting to the podium area so you can safely cross that way. Is there any way they can close that access point, or would you rather consider that?
No.
No?
The county, we had spoke with them about that, and that was a big no.
No.
Well, the biggest problem is somebody's coming in here and they can't make this turn to get here.
Oh,
So
then
the
they
boulevard
can
right here, so they allow.
I guess 'cause that's got the median.
Coming back, so.
Yeah, they come back side.
This intersection's changed a lot.
All right, any other questions or discussion? The only other thing I want to bring up, I would like to see a sidewalk here too. Because Discover Green Bay, you know, they're gonna have people walking there and it is not gonna be easy to get there. And that crossing from Bella's over to them, just the few times I've been up there, it's not pretty, because there's like 6 lanes or something there. Maybe I'm off a little bit. But people are crossing there. And maybe that's where they're heading, going to Discover Green Bay.
Surprised they didn't ask for that when
That's what I was thinking. Why wasn't the sidewalk put into requirements when we have that in our ordinance? I don't think that should have been in there. We didn't have to worry about it.
you got them coming to back, because you want them to go other places.
Right, and you want them to come there. I mean, that's why they're located there. People are gonna come by a lot of different modes to get there.
If we were to explore that, we're pretty much out of right away, unfortunately, so there'd have to be some acquisition that would have to take place from both the bank and Discover Green Bay.
This is all owned by. Here to be talking about.
There you go. And we'll
So
post
they
it, right?
own this, lease it out to the bank?
And
Good to know.
Listen, they lease it to Discover. They do not own this little section right here, that's owned.
Used to Steve Winter, but I don't
Winters still
think,
owns it.
he still does own
Oh,
it.
did he sell it? He could have sold it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure,
I know up to 2 years.
in the last year, so I think it changed ownership.
So,
All right, any other questions or comments, anybody?
On Brookwood, when we get to the west side, is there a crosswalk there?
There isn't currently, but we are proposing
In the south side of the intersection,
I
right?
can't
one. North side.
North side?
Yeah, it should be on the north side, because the sidewalk's on the north side.
That's right, yes. Oh, yeah, there's one.
So if we're gonna do a flashing beacon at the other intersection, should we be looking at a flashing beacon at that one too?
We could. Generally, they're at mid blocks, but you can put them at intersections, especially at intersections with free flow. Because there is no stop, the stop conditions on Brookwood.
If you have a lot of people parking in Cabela's, that's the one they're probably gonna cross at, because it
Yeah.
comes down the parking lot.
What if instead of RFBs, just put an enhanced crosswalk with the ladder design, just to really beef it up so it shows up more like we have by the schools?
Good.
You know, to just really make it more visible. If you know, if you don't think RFB is the way to go there.
We could.
Because this area, I mean, Dan's mentioned all kinds, this area is, people are walking all over here. And that's not just packed games all the time, just, people are just moving. So we need to make this as pedestrian friendly as we can. And looking at how people are moving and making sure they have access to the different places that are on there, you know, in that area. So,
And we are putting a new path in the park, so
Right.
that could increase foot traffic.
so do bicycles ride on sidewalks?
Yes, all the time.
They do.
They're not supposed
I'll
to.
tell you what, there's a ton of bicycles.
yeah, could
They
we bike
lawfully
lanes
can.
on there?
Five all the
They lawfully.
Out on the access road?
Yeah.
We
I don't-
could, we were
you
thinking
don't
about the road
really-
diet.
You don't really need,
We're kind of going the wrong way.
I
if we-
know you are.
And honestly, if there is a bike,
They're gonna ride it anyway.
correct.
They're gonna ride the road. It's not busy.
It's not that busy.
It's slow movements. They're gonna be out there on that road anyway. It's not that big a deal.
It's not really much of a connector either, it's mainly just.
No,
using the
exactly, yeah.
businesses.
You know, something else to think about, not that, probably not in the near future too, is I'm just curious, you've got Metro Market there, how long is Metro Market going to be there?
Yeah.
I mean, in reality, I mean, it's such a great piece of property. I just don't know
how long it's going to be there. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Even like when
Yeah.
Hy-Vee came in too, because like
And then-
that was, they were like the place in Ashwaubenon, and now they're not that old. That was,
And then
Yeah.
to get rid of Metro Market, you really gotta have like a wow type of thing to go there, which is, if it's a wow thing, it's gonna even attract more people. So you
Right.
gotta,
Make it more
yeah.
accessible. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't
pretty
I don't
sure
disagree
the
with you
packers
on
on
having
this and
sidewalk all
this,
around.
and if we said winter sold this, then I'm pretty sure the
I'd have to look again, but
they tried to buy the whole thing. If Winter sold that, he would have sold it. And I'm pretty sure these two are owned. I don't know about,
we take our Red Lobster away.
I don't know about Red Lobster.
That would be a bad thing.
No, they just buy them, lease it back.
just so they have control of them.
Red Lobster might not be, but I think Chunky Cheese was, they bought that years ago.
All right, any other questions? Otherwise, Brian's looking, we'll have to close the floor unless he had anything else to add. Make a motion, someone to close the floor, please. Second, Shale. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you for your comments, Dan.
Valuable.
Yeah, so we need a motion for Brian on what our preference is. If someone would want to put something together.
How are you gonna word that?
Brian, what do you think we said?
I think I have somewhat of a draft in the agenda. It's pretty,
Yeah, he does.
I don't know how well it is, because
Yeah, he has recommendations to staff to locate the sidewalk on the north or south side. So we all agree it's the south side, would that be a given? Of Lombardi Access Road and cross the intersections at the following locations. So we're saying on the west end of it, we're saying going across Argonne, further south, the south crossing. And then we're saying on the east end that we're gonna be crossing at the intersection. Okay, and then maybe the other caveats to put in there was looking at bringing the sidewalk south
Did we
on
say at the
Marley,
intersection, or was that
We
more of a
said
mid-block? That was
down
more of a
here.
mid-block on the east end.
on Marley.
on Marley.
Yeah, but we're at the intersection, we talked about right at Marley in the frontage road though, right? Having that crossing there too, instead of the mid-block on, or going further west on the frontage road.
because you're gonna try to have that sidewalk continue
Yeah.
all the way around, so you wouldn't cross it.
Yeah, to get to the podium. And then talk to the Packers about putting a sidewalk on the east side of Marley and on the east side of Argonne, from frontage road down to Brook. What? I see that.
That would be sidewalks around the whole block.
Yeah,
So do we have to put anything in our budget talking to the county to obtain some of that property?
I'll do that regardless.
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 Yeah, so this right of way is owned by the county, and it's actually, the access is controlled by the DOT. So there's two different stakeholders from an access control point.
What is the reason behind keeping that mid-block one into the Lombardi access road? That they
So
would
people can
close
get
that?
into the grocery store.
Say on that story, this is one of them. Swearing to our family uses, we use that every time we go.
So they
You said you
wanted
can't
to
turn
take
down here, you have to go.
Okay, before you two off, we got a motion. Does that sound like a motion that's, and if someone would like to make that instead of me, that would be great. And then we get a second.
Make a motion to do whatever you said.
Okay, motion by Dale,
I'll second.
a second by Jessica. All those in favor, any questions or any discussion? Brian, is that clear enough? You got that?
It is.
Okay.
The one thing I would add is this is all dependent on the feedback that I get from the county and state. So we'll do what we can, and of course, we're gonna have a public information meeting too, where we're gonna discuss it even further. So,
All right, if there's no other discussion, then I would, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, folks. Do you need to leave?
No, in a couple minutes. Are we gonna have it on record that he was here?
Yes.
Right here.
Yep.
Okay.
If he was here.
Just so.
I appreciate you being here to speak about the property right here. He's sitting right next to me.
I know, yeah. All right, thank you, Brian, Dan,
Yep.
thanks for your comments, we appreciate it, and everyone for pulling through it. I know it's a big decision and it's a nice area, so. All right, so then action item 8B is consider, discuss, adequate information related to the regulations of motorized bicycles, electric personal assistance devices, ATVs, and other vehicles, including neighborhood electric vehicles, scooters, etc. And Joel, I believe, is got this one.
Mouthful,
That's a mouthful.
This is a mouthful.
So
Yeah.
if you recall last month at this committee, public safety was present to talk through what our current regulations are. But coincidentally, trustee Zerbal also requested the same item to be presented to village board at their last meeting at the end of September, to which point the village board passed a motion to refer this matter back to this committee for you guys to deliberate over and then ultimately provide a recommendation for possible amendments to our village code. So in an effort to provide some clarity back to the committee on what we currently have on our code and what state traffic code either allows or disallows, I put a pretty substantial summary of those elements within the cover page so that you didn't have to read through 77 pages
I appreciate it.
of statute. So I'll just kind of briefly touch on a few things. So first and foremost, our primary concern, I think, with the village board is related to electric bicycles and electric scooters, or what could be eventually the future of whatever those electric assisted devices could be. So those are really kind of the two main drivers as to why the discussion is to be had. So quickly, too, I want to mention that the village does have an ordinance that was presented last month. It's Chapter 7, Section 7, that delves into this topic. So we do have presently an ordinance in place that does regulate these, but the ordinance itself, to some degree, predates the proliferation of electric bicycles and scooters. So our ordinance goes back to like 2017 when it was first adopted. So these likely existed, but they were not widely used or privately owned. Oftentimes back then, it's my presumption that the ordinance was passed because there was, to some degree, a proliferation of these rental bicycles, scooters, and things like that. But now we're seeing private citizens just owning them outright. They're really popular. So just kind of take that into mind as to why does the village have some things and not have some things? It's just because the technology in itself has really taken off. Yeah.
Yep.
So first and foremost, I want to touch on traffic code. So under traffic code and the updates to the traffic code post-date the village's ordinance related to these things. So 2017, village adopts an ordinance. Between 2017 and today, the state statutes were amended to reflect this proliferation of electric bicycles. Okay? Under current traffic code, electric bicycles are afforded the same privileges and rights that bicycles have, but also the same responsibilities. So think of them as a bicycle, but with an electric motor on it. So they have to follow the same rules of the road statutorily as any bicyclist would. With that, however, under traffic code, municipalities can enact further restrictions on electric bicycles as it relates to bicycle ways. And how they define bicycle ways is it could be anything from a trail to a bike lane on a road, a pathway, things of that nature. And so statutes allow locals to regulate that. With that being said, you cannot regulate the usage of electric bicycles on roads. They are afforded the same rights and responsibilities that any bicyclist would have on the road. So they have to follow the same traffic laws that a bicyclist would.
Can I just clarify real quick?
Yep.
So a bike way, the way I think of it, maybe this wrong, is the sidewalk, the trail, the elevator. So something that is not on the road. A bike lane would be something that's on the road that you'd see, like on Hanson Road, we have bike lanes, and on Broadway. And so that's the difference between the two. One is remote from the road and one is on. Is that correct how you would say it? And then
Correct.
When they're on the road in a bike lane, they would be abiding by the rules just like any bicyclist. And they cannot operate the other ones right now.
So where it gets into the restrictions is under chapter 84, when we talk about bikeway, and it's really more geared towards natural resources. So if you think about a trail, a path, when they say bikeway or lane, sometimes you don't see it necessarily around here, but you might have a path with a separate bike lane attached to that path. So in that case, because it's part of like a DNR restricted area, electric bicycle would be excluded from, or could potentially be excluded from authorized use on that lane. But if it's a bike lane on the road, like a dedicated bike lane, it follows the same rules of the road as any other road. So there's that. So with that, again, under statutes, we can create some restrictions as it relates to those types of bicycles, particularly on paths, trails, sidewalks, things of that nature. And in fact, the village has adopted that to some degree. So under chapter 7, we do restrict the use of a motor bicycle on pathways, sidewalks, trails, things of that nature. So we have enacted the ordinance that restricts that type of use on sidewalks, trails, things of that nature. With that being said, our ordinances specify what's called a motor bicycle and not an electric bicycle. It is loosely implied that a motor bicycle is an electric bicycle. However, my recommendation would be just further define it to being an electric bicycle. So just add some clarity to that. That will be another discussion topic because there are different types of electric bicycles that I didn't do a whole lot of research on, but there's type 1, 2, and 3. And they have varying degrees of power and speed and things of that nature. I couldn't find anything within the statutes that explicitly gives or takes away a village or city's authority to regulate those on things like paths. So I presume I'm under the presumption under home rule authority that we could restrict, let's say, a type 3 device, but not a type 1 device on a sidewalk, path, or trail, because we have the authority to regulate it. So it might be so I'll do the best I can. Do you have a packet? Okay. Sorry. I was in a budget meeting all afternoon. My computer was working hard.
Laptop batteries do not last.
Okay, so with that in mind, obviously just keep in mind that we probably do need to further define what an electric bicycle is, and then if we want to differentiate between a type 1, 2, or 3 device. Okay. It was the question came up before, does the village code or what is allowed as far as bicycle usage on sidewalks? So Wisconsin state statutes do allow the usage of bicycles on sidewalks so long as the bicyclist is yielding the right of way to any pedestrian and exercising due caution. With that being said, a municipality can regulate whether or not bicycles are allowed to be ridden on a sidewalk under the traffic code. The village has adopted code that does allow bicycles to be used on sidewalks so long as, again, they yield the right of way to pedestrians and use due caution. So we have enacted the provision within statutes that would allow that type of use.
But the state does not allow, correct? Is that what you said?
The state does allow it. So when local authorities permit it.
Right. So, but in this, if you adopt state statute in regard to bicycles, then you could not have them on the sidewalk, correct?
Correct.
But a state or municipality can change that and say you can have it on this sidewalk and this sidewalk or all of our sidewalks.
Correct. Okay. Correct. Yep. So riding a bicycle on a sidewalk by default is not permitted under state statutes. However, under that same traffic code, it does afford the local municipality from enacting a code that does permit it. Again, so long as they yield to pedestrians, use due caution. Statutes do allow it if they provide an audible signal. So again, you're like on your left, ring a bell, stuff like that. Our code currently does allow bicycles, pedal bicycles, not electric bikes or motorbikes, from being used on the sidewalk. So that's electric bicycles, if you will. So that's kind of the frame of reference for that. Then we get into electric scooters or electric personal assistive devices. The statutes get really muddy and sticky on these items. And there are a multitude of things where it transfers kind of the thought process between electric scooters being viewed very similarly to bicycles, but then also being viewed as pedestrians. And then there's provisions within the statutes that delve into like delivery vehicles and things like that, because in urban environments, a lot of these, they're using them to like as courier services. So there's provisions there as well. In any event, electric scooters can be lawfully operated on a highway or a roadway, a bicycle lane or bicycle way, following the same rules that most of the rules anyway that bicyclists must follow. So they have similar things. However, with that, the governing body of a local municipality can regulate electric scooters on roadways for roads in their jurisdiction that have speed limits greater than 25 miles per hour. Can restrict their use on sidewalks or bicycle ways. So the same definition of bicycle ways as before. And then they can also regulate the type of parking. So that's really kind of more geared towards those rental units. So with that being said, the village does restrict the use of electric scooters on its roadways for roads posted greater than 25 miles per hour. And we also restrict the use of electric scooters on sidewalks and bicycle ways. So I could theoretically ride my scooter on any road that's 25 miles an hour, so long as I'm not on the sidewalk, and I think we're well within my rights. But beyond that, I would not be able to use that. There's a variety of different statutes that kind of govern what that bicycle way is. And again, it's very similar to the bicycle definition.
Are there any rules on the scooters as far as, I only bring this up because we walk around in our area, and my wife is saying she sees the kids going to school on scooters, and they're very not visible, right? Because there's no reflectors, there's no nothing. It's just them two kids, and they'll ride side by side. So normally a bicycle has, I mean, we're going to have lights on them, flashing lights, but it's going to at least have a reflector. I think it's a requirement, right?
It's required you have to have a white light up front and a red light
Red
to the
light
back.
back. So on a scooter, there's really nothing.
The new ones all have them.
They do.
Yes. So
Okay,
I
that's
forgot,
what-
like, I think it was like 2 years ago or something like that, because I know our old ones don't, our new ones do, and then.
So it's on
through
the
it all,
lower,
this has
lower
like a-
part of the,
Yep, so there's like the white and the red, and then a lot of the new ones even have like a headlight on the front now, like for if it's dark out, things like that, but they all have reflection now down towards like the bottom. So, but they'd have to have a newer one.
To your point, I was gonna make this point later, but I think whatever we determine, we're going to need to be in partnership with the school district on a very robust education, getting everyone on the same page. Because there are practicality aspects to these scooters. They are here. And what we want is safe people, right? So
So a couple questions to just kind of consider that for talking points and discussion purposes. One, should electric bicycle scooters and those electric personal assistive devices be further defined within the code? I would argue yes. Certainly the electric bikes. And again, I think there's probably some general conversation that should be had about the types of, type 1, 2, or 3. Should electric bicycles be afforded the full extent of rights and privileges of other non-motorized bicycles in the village, specifically on sidewalks, trails, bikeways, village-owned properties? So again, under statute, an electric bicycle is afforded the same rights, privileges, and responsibilities as a bicyclist, but in the village that does not carry the same weight on trails and things of that nature. So they're very popular. They're especially popular with older adults or individuals that may have some limitations of mobility. So they're technically not allowed, like on the Ashwaubenon River Trail.
Right.
They're not allowed, but you probably see them.
Maybe up there.
Well, a lot of them you can't, it's hard to even tell.
Right. Well, that's an argument on whether it's a type 1, type 2, or type 3, or whether they're using it or not electrically. It's like, how do you just
use it in one stretch and not use it on the other stretch.
right? And then question 3 is, should electric scooters be afforded the same rights and privileges as bicycles? Statutes do allow that to be the case. Maybe that is good or not. And then, are there any other regulations that should be considered? I throw this item out there. There is a municipality in Wisconsin that does require individuals to wear bike helmets under their municipal code for bicycles and any other devices.
Riders?
16 and younger.
Okay.
So it has been tested in the courts. So it's been an ordinance that's been in place for at least 25 years. So you could do some things. We could get creative, I suppose, but bear in mind it could be challenging. And then the other item I did not list here is probably the biggest item is whatever we enact, it's going to be extremely difficult to enforce. So it really kind of comes down to more of an educational element than anything else. And then, so what can we do organizationally to help educate and inform, to Kim's point, work with the school district to ensure kids are
Signage and signage.
Yeah.
So with that, certainly can answer any questions about the specifics of code or statute, but at this point, it's really just kind of conversational. And if you have any ideas or thought processes, then I could put together some things on paper and bring it back to committee for consideration.
Only thing I'll go out there with is, I think all of our goal is to have an active and safe community. So while I do not yet perhaps have an electric bike, they've changed the lives of some people, just made biking possible. To not ever be thinking this way.
Yep.
So I hope that we're all in agreement that we want to do everything we can to promote people being out and active while they're being safe. And not making a law enforcement nightmare.
Right.
I think the rules need to be there for the person that abuses
Right.
the system like any.
Like any, that's why ordinance.
So at least you've got something
All that done.
to fall back.
I agree with Dale. I think there needs to be some avenue for restricting or licensing, or not necessarily licensing, but some avenue for regulating that, because they're going to be here. And either we create a separate set of rules for these things, or we include them with bicycles in the existing rules. And it seems to me it's better to find the way to fit them in than try to just put them in their own classification. Because, we've got cars, we have bicycle pedestrians. Are these in the middle? Yeah, let's put them where they best fit, rather than try to set a new set of regulations.
I use Dan's words. I don't think we want to predict what they're going to do in the future.
Yeah.
Because they're human beings.
Yeah.
They're all different.
And practicality.
We are
you know,
too.
Like we were saying, like, again, my kids are in middle school and I'm on this committee, and like I said, half the softball team didn't know which direction they're supposed to
Yeah.
walk on. I think trying to get them to understand which side of the road you should walk on, how to ride bikes safely, all of that's hard enough. I feel like trying to make this align with bicycles just makes way more sense than trying to add like another caveat to it. Cause like, they're gonna do it, and the simpler we make it for them, the better. And honestly, again, from an enforcement standpoint, I mean, that new enforcement officer they could have a whole job just doing this and dogs and parks probably. But really in the grand scheme of things, are those the two things we care the most about? No, because we want people out in the community and we want them. I mean, I'm obviously hoping for an active adult to be here very shortly. Like, we want more e-bikes are going to be in the area. Like, we're encouraging that. So.
And if scooter riders get accustomed to following those rules, they're gonna form a habit, and when they get on their bike or as a pedestrian,
Yes.
they're gonna be used to following those rules.
Well, that's what I say, whether it's an electric bike or a pedal bike.
Right.
You still have to abide by the same rules.
Right.
They're still a bicycle. And like Rick said, sometimes you can't even tell it's an electric bike. So to have different rules for everybody, it's just too hard. I mean, it's hard enough to educate people just to ride on the right side of the street, let alone anything else. The other thing I would like to see on it is to not allow bicycles on our sidewalks. The state does not allow it because based on their research, the data, everything else, it's safer, and I know it's probably counterintuitive to people. It's safer for you to bicycle on the road than it is to bicycle on a sidewalk. And Kyle had mentioned that, crossing the street is the biggest risks, those are some of the biggest risks for people on bicycles.
So when I'm backing out of my driveway,
Backing out of your driveway, you're not seeing them.
I'm looking for cars, and I'm not necessarily looking on the sidewalk. I look like my property, is there somebody coming walking across there?
Yeah.
So you can see a pedestrian because they're moving so much slower than somebody zipping down on a bike.
Well, and like Joel was talking about, the class 3 bikes, electric bikes can go up to 28 miles per hour. So they're booking. We don't want them on the sidewalk. We don't want, I don't think we want any electric bike on the sidewalk because they're moving faster. Usually it's someone that maybe has a bike for a long time and they've maybe never ridden that fast. And for them to be on the sidewalk, then add that to it, the fact that they've never traveled at the speed and now they're on a sidewalk. So I just say it's safer, and all research has said it's safer to be on the road.
I know my wife had that going down on Ice Street, turn on Hanson. The guy's like, and she could, he's behind her, right? And she's making a right-hand turn, and she had the green light.
Yeah.
And he came flying. She said, I almost hit him, dude. I didn't see him. He was.
Yeah. Well, especially going common flow is really dangerous on the sidewalk with a bike because you're in an unpredictable spot, and a motor vehicle driver is not even looking for you because there's no risk to them when they're coming up to that intersection. So they don't even look. So it's even more dangerous when going common flow on a bike.
Joel or Tracy, did one of you say that there's a variety among the local municipalities in the sidewalk, whether you can have bikes on sidewalks?
Yeah, I'd have to do a little bit of research to see what there's allowed.
No, okay, I just didn't know.
But every municipality can enact their own provision.
That's confusing for your average.
It is.
Think about taking a bike ride around the Fox River. How many municipalities are involved with that?
Right.
I think the hardest things for me with the bikes is like, and again, you're way more of a cyclist, but like for me, I think more of like, again, kids riding bikes or just like more recreationally doing it. I understand all that. I personally feel like it's totally different. Like I honestly foresee myself and a lot of our friends even letting the kids go up Cormier. They'll ride, I don't care if my kids ride their bike on Cormier to go up to stuff and go get ice clouds. I wouldn't want my kids riding on Cormier because also in all honesty, drivers are just more distracted. They're swerving, they're going into bike lanes, and now in bike lanes, they're supposed to ride with them. They're not going against them. Like, I feel like that one I have a harder time with. And again, I get absolutely your point. That makes sense. But then seeing it from the other side of it, I also don't want to have to be like, you're not allowed to ride your bike on the sidewalk, because I'll be honest, I'm gonna tell my kid I don't want them riding on some of the streets we have, just because of how busy they are. And again, I would rather encourage them to get out of the house and go play. Like, get outside. Don't. I don't know. Like, that's what I would want.
And if we, well, I don't like bicycles on the sidewalks for lots, but if we enact the rule saying they can't be on the sidewalks, then we're putting the scooters and e-bikes and personal, we're adding more stuff to the roadway.
But the personal assisted devices are legal on the sidewalk, correct?
The same as scooters would be so long as the municipality doesn't restrict it. So that is different than an assisted or like an accessibility device. So like a little rascal chair or something, because I have some limits to mobility. I might have a motorized chair or something like that. That's allowable
on the sidewalk.
So this is difficult because we just heard about, you said,
yep,
Cormier, bike, safety, crazy drivers. You said living on Cormier, people coming down the sidewalk, hard to see if you're backing out of your driveway. So just right here, we have
two different.
Both very good points.
Well, and it's an education thing too. I mean, you could teach your children to bicycle safety on Cormier on the road. You could. And they would be safer. You may not believe that. They would be safer out there if they're taught and they can do the thing. There's plenty of room out
I
there.
don't think parents are worried about their kids. They're worried about the people driving cars that aren't paying attention. That's what I'd be worried about.
And that's a good point, because even those flashing lights, I brought this up before. Because when my grandkids come, we go to Titletown. And we park in the parking lot by its Packers and press the light. I will never let them cross that road. Even with them overheads, there's people that don't stop.
they just don't stop.
Right.
And I don't know if it's because they're not paying attention, right? Or they're just distracted from something, but I always tell them, I said, "Do not walk out there till you know that vehicle stopped."
Right, exactly. And that's just being smart, that's a good thing to teach you.
Even the fogger thing, I mean, I give Wello a lot of credit.
Yeah.
At least they're educating people
Right.
and they're doing it nicely without giving them tickets or
Right.
giving them warnings.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we could look at, I don't know the answer to this question, I just, it's more of a question for myself, is are we able to provide provision that would aim to restrict the use of sidewalks for either bicycles or e-bikes?
I've seen that.
I've seen
Yeah.
it too, but I don't want to commit to that, but that could be an avenue that we look at. So let's say if you're under the age of 18 or 16 or 12 or whatever it is, whatever that age be, then you would be afforded the opportunity to use the sidewalk.
I'm gonna throw an extra wrench in your thing though, because I'm apparently playing devil's advocate today, so now I'm riding bikes with my 10-year-old. Am I allowed to ride on the sidewalk with my 10-year-old? Because we ride together. You know what I mean? Like, I just throwing it out there, because that's what's gonna happen.
Right alongside.
You know, like, am I now gonna be on the road and they're on the,
An ideal situation from my point of view is allow it, but then if you're able to restrict speed. So if you're going 12 miles an hour, certainly better than 25 miles per hour, because I think you'll run into those conflicts for sure that Tracy and Kyle had mentioned. If you're driving 25 miles an hour on the sidewalk going counter traffic and you're backing out of your driveway,
just asking for it.
you're getting schmucked. So
well, and I feel bad saying it, but some of it is like the stupid games and stupid prizes. If you're gonna go that fast, like, why have them ruin it for everybody else? That's like, because they're also the one that's putting themselves at risk. It's a little different as opposed to, I look at it as, if my kid's riding on this, Cormier and someone swerves into them, I'm putting them at risk by putting them in the road. Where if someone's going 35 down a sidewalk and putting themselves at risk doing something like that, as opposed to slowing themselves down. Like, I don't know. Again, I know I'm looking at it from a different viewpoint of like kids versus adults, but also even honestly, as people are starting to get into more of the e-bikes now, you're going to have more people that aren't as comfortable on the roadways starting to utilize them. I think a lot of them will probably start on sidewalks as opposed to starting on the roads just because their comfort level's not there. Like, I know my Aunt Kathy just got one like 2 years ago, and now she's all over. She's become like avid and avid cyclist, which is awesome. But when she started out on the sidewalks because she didn't feel comfortable on the street. If she wouldn't have, I don't honestly think she'd be doing it because it's a comfort thing. And so again, like for me, I would rather encourage them to be out than not, I guess. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
Joel's suggestion of limiting speed is a good one.
Yeah, I like the speed thing over the age thing just because of, like I said.
Also, if there are scooters that do not have lights or reflectors, I like the idea of us looking for a corporate sponsor or grant funds to just buy them
Stickers.
and get them out.
Yeah, I used to do that on across the school.
Well, even the bike rodeos and things like that we do, they could
Center
put
for
those in
Child
with
Safety
the
or
bike
Deborah
rodeos.
from Wello, she'd be terrific at sourcing that.
Because I mean, again, you go to the middle school and drop kids off, there's bikes and there's a whole bunch of scooters, and honestly, even like there's, I don't know how, but like there's kids on our softball team that have e-bikes, where I'm like, their bike costs as much as my first car did, but great. But I mean, like that's how they get to their sports and stuff. Because again, like we're working, and it's nice when they can.
Yeah, I mean, micromobility is
your-
not going away. It's gonna
Your
go.
excess of speed.
Mhm.
How do you decide what's excess of speed on a
Right.
bicycle?
Yeah. Well, how do you know how fast you're going to?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, these are all good points.
I know.
Yeah, if it's,
Well, and the thing is just to make it as safe and as clear as we can, I think are the things that probably we can all agree on.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
So having electric bikes with the bikes and the scooters together, then everyone's abiding by the same rules and regulations. So, I mean, the clearer we can make it, then our educational campaign is that much easier too.
Yep.
Instead of, well, if you have this kind of bike, now you go 40 and this one, you can't go on the sidewalk, but unless it's Thursday, then you can go, it's like, you'll never get them to do what you want anyway. It has to be simple.
you hung in there this whole thing and you haven't said boo.
I know, I got a lot to say. First of all, I grew up in Ashwaubenon, we didn't have a sidewalk. And we didn't wear helmets, and we used to race to see how fast we could get our bikes. And I know I could get 41 and my friend could get 44. So the speed was nothing. But I will tell you in Florida, so on Marco Island, I don't know about the rest of Florida, but on Marco Island, they have sidewalks, which are 5 foot, and then they have the trails, which are 8 foot. They don't allow electric bikes or any bikes. They don't allow any bikes on the sidewalks. They have to use the trails. And the trails all intersect with sidewalks. So when you come off the trail, you have to go onto the road and ride on the road until you get to the next trailhead. And the sidewalks are for pedestrians and the trails for everybody. And I know the village has that. And my question would be like the Fox River Trail. I mean, I know in Green Bay you can ride a bike on the trail. I don't know if you can in Always. I don't know if you can in De Pere.
Yeah.
But so now we got trail systems that are going to start connecting with all that. So they kind of have regulated the bicycles off the sidewalks for the pedestrians. But they've allowed them, they've given them options with the trails, like you were saying. You know, maybe a old fire like me gets on an electric bike, we need to go to a trail system instead of a sidewalk.
Well, the key with your thing about you're not safe for kids riding on the road, then we need to look at making our roads as safe as we can. So everybody can move through them safely. You know, and really, if you think of all our residential roads, they're very safe. You could bike in on all of those, and everyone would feel safe on those. It's our collectors and arterials that we need to think about when we're rebuilding them, when we're doing them, that we make sure we have provisions for pedestrians and bicyclists, because they want to go to the same place that the motor vehicle driver wants to go. And that's where the biggest conflicts are, on those arterials and collector streets. The residential are fine, you know. So if we can make our roads and think of that.
Sidewalks.
Yeah, right, I know, there is one.
Yeah.
We don't have sidewalks. That makes it easy.
Yeah.
The other question I have is, because I know, like you mentioned, the village with like wanting to keep the like community scooters out, are we allowed to say, like, call it out as like privately owned scooter e-bike? Would that help offset? Because I also do still understand why we would maybe not want like Bird, Home Bike, whatever coming in. The commercial ones coming in, like, could we have like, you know, like, because I know that's what, like you said, they initially put this in there because of that. So could we say, you know, privately owned is allowed or something that way? Would that help them with that concern? Or I don't know if it's somewhere else called out that would protect us from them coming in. Because I think I remember being on the committee when that all was all coming up, and that was, I thought, kind of like their way to get around legal of Bird and some of those coming in, was that since it wasn't allowed in the village, that's what allowed us to not allow them to come in. And so I can understand, or I could see people not wanting to amend these because they don't want that. I guess that's the commercial end of it, but I didn't know if there's a way to change your verbiage
We
to
can,
allow that or not.
we can prohibit the use, we're able to prohibit the ability for these commercial scooters
Okay.
to exist. We have that
Found that
authority
figure.
within the statute. I was gonna make a comment off of that, and I forget what it was. I'll come back to it in a moment. But yeah, we have the ability within statutes to regulate it.
My comment with you is, why would we want to do that?
I think the biggest concern is there's some people that really don't like the commercial ones because of them being left all over the yards and just kind of abandoned all over. And I would just hate to see us not allow privately owned ones because we're afraid of that. So my point is, if that's going to stop them from changing this, then I would rather us call them out separately, because because people don't want their commercial ones laying all over their yards be a reason we don't allow people to use their private ones in the village. You know, because like the line bikes too, I know we're seeing more and more of those, like our rentals. We have a rental in Green Bay that's across from a grocery store. And there's like the actual e-bikes, line bikes are there all the time now. So that must be like a new place that they're dropping those. So like it is coming more and more into our area. So if that would be a reason, the village would say, no, we don't want to amend this because we don't want those coming in. I would rather try to separate them. Because again, they're already being used.
I'm just thinking over time as we grow.
Yeah, those are
especially
gonna.
Title town, I want to have,
Yeah.
you're going to want to accept them. at some
You could
point.
change the ordinance. Let's say we leave it in or put it in that commercial or rental type scooters and electric bikes are not allowed in Ashwaubenon. You could do that. And then let's say someday we decide, okay, Lambeau Field area, we want to allow it there and work with Green Bay and have them come across. then we could probably adapt it, I would assume, to allow those to come in then.
I was told that, and I don't know if it's true or not, but Titletown did not want them in it, and that was the big thing, because that would be the primary area people would want to be there. And then getting down in like the sports district by the bars, not that that was the area they didn't want them because of the concerns of, I'm assuming, drinking and all that, which is like, well, go to Nashville or everywhere. But, you know, so like if they're not gonna allow them in those areas, then yeah, I guess the rest of those don't make sense. But yeah, I just, like I said, they're being used. Again, we use them, our family does. And honestly, even I would say, like I said, we have multiple employees that's how they get to work now, with either electric scooters or electric bikes. Like, that's how they.
So you bring up, she brings up a good point. What's the legality is that? Well, but can you know a WI on a bicycle?
Yeah.
Can't,
You
On
can't.
the scooters, you can.
A scooter you
Yeah,
can.
the scooters you can.
but bicycle you can. I don't know about an electric one though. I don't think you can. I don't think you can get an OWI on bike, period.
Or at least in Nashville, you can get them on a scooter because they warn you
So
about every.
now you're on an electric bike that goes pretty fast.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, well, the world's changing.
Yeah,
Change with it, I guess.
yeah, it really is.
So I don't know that we need a decision today, but I think there's probably a little bit more thought as to, I get the sense that most of the majority of the group would like to see e-bikes be afforded the same rights and privileges that bicyclists get, particularly on trails. There's a greater conversation on sidewalks. So I think with that conversation, what I will do is do a little bit more research to see what our surrounding areas do as far as restricted uses with e-bikes, scooters, and bicyclists in general on sidewalks. And then I can bring that back to the committee because that may help you formulate an opinion on that.
So I want to throw in one thing that it's going to be a wrench, and what we just talked about already, but because we can, and I don't think it's changed, but because for the majority of our trails, we've accepted DNR funding to help build them. The DNR has said there's no motorized electric vehicles on those trails accepted for ADA accessibility reasons. So per the DNR, because we accepted money to help build the trails, those are not currently allowed unless it's on a trail that we built with our own money. And there's not many of those. I think maybe Argonne might be the Argonne and maybe Industrial Park Trail are about the only two I think the village has built.
Rex, do you happen to know if the Fox River Trail accepted DNR funds?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Big time.
There are electric bikes on there all day long.
There is, if you look on Joel's stuff, they put on the key regulations, the second one.
And I'm not saying that.
It
makes
does
right,
mention
I'm
the
just observing.
Department of Natural Resources allows them.
Yeah, they do unless a rule has been established, but I'll do a little research on the DNR end of things.
Maybe it's gas powered versus
Yes.
versus
Yes.
electric. Maybe that's the difference.
And some of these grants that we had gotten predate some of the
Electric bikes,
the
yeah.
electric proliferation of scooters
Yes,
and
they
bicycles.
have. The majority of our trails actually.
Well,
Yes.
I'll do some research on that too.
ATVs, like it's two totally different things, but before it was such a easier class to just say all those power vehicles. But now, I mean,
There's so many.
UTV and an electric scooter, UTV is essentially a car now. And like,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
scooters are that, so.
I think the most profound thing that I found was that the traffic law does regulate the use of Barbie cars
Yes.
on the road. There is a provision in the statute that
Oh,
prohibits Barbie cars, power wheels.
Did we say anything
We
about
better be
helmets,
talking
or is
about-
that like
I don't
not a
know.
topic?
I mean, your comment about we like to see people out, I hate to see, because I have to wear a helmet, I'm not gonna bike. I mean, I'd love to see everybody wear a helmet because I crashed and if I didn't have my helmet on, I would have had a major head injury. So there definitely is there, but I'd rather see people ride because it looks for their health, they won't maybe have a heart attack, they'll be in better shape, they'll feel better, all that stuff. So if they won't do it because they have to wear helmets, I'd rather see them ride.
Maybe if we pick back up at the how we're gonna promote these safe practices
And
part,
encourage them.
we could do an encouragement and
Yeah.
maybe even outfitting certain.
Right,
things
like
to
even
help
wearing
them.
bright clothing and all that stuff is another big, you can't require that. State does not allow that, but we could say, you know, when you're out there, wear bright clothes, wear lights, if you're out after dark, make sure you're late, you know, all that stuff, we could just have it be part of our education. It should be a good thing to include.
I like your idea if you could get a grant and the scooters and the vehicles that don't have any indicators on it, that, 'cause there's a lot of young kids that,
That would
and
not
I would
be
do the
hard.
same thing if I was them.
That would not be
Just
hard to
at
get a
least
grant.
give you some visibility of them.
The police used to do it for bicycles. They had
Yep,
lights that they
they did.
carried in Devo
Absolutely.
for headlights and taillights to bicyclists that they found at night riding without them. So, then they'd write it down, and if they caught them again with them, and then they'd give them a ticket.
Okay, I'll do a little research then for the group and bring back some more data. So DNR regulations, and I'll inquire about the uses of these types of devices on sidewalks, trails, and other municipalities, see what other restrictions maybe they have, and then bring that back and then we can start.
Appreciate that.
That would be great. All right. Any other questions or comments on that, anybody? Keep moving.
No, that was good.
Thank you, Joe, for getting on that.
Thanks.
Items for next agenda, the other ones that I had written down was bringing the ordinances back if you're ready. Maybe an update on final design from Lombardi if you get that, if that gets figured out, just at least update us or keep us in the loop on that one. The bicycle friendly application discussion, maybe, I don't know if we need to have a discussion on whether we want to pursue that or not. I mean, we've been going, it's been in the works and kind of moving along, so maybe it's something we don't want to pursue anymore. I don't know. I guess just discuss and say.
Yeah, the one
Is
thing,
this-
we can bring it up at the next meeting, I believe they're going to singular application cycles now, and I have to double check, but I thought it
Once a
was August is this middle date now versus April, so I can double check that, we can bring that back.
Okay.
Maybe they simplified the application, if they did, that would be better, because it's pretty robust.
I doubt it, because they just changed it to the way they did, so. And I think they only did the 2 times because they had changed it all. And
Sure.
that kind of thing. But, and the only one other thing, the Homegrown Way, an update, anything on Homegrown Way. And the gentleman from ARPA, he's a regional rep for ARPA. ARPA was involved with, down in the cities for College Avenue. And I have a call out to him just to see if he has any information, if he has anything he'd like to share with us, or to come to a meeting to kind of say, this is what ARPA is looking at, or what they would, recommend, or whatever, just to see if he has any educational stuff. So if he gets back to me maybe for the next meeting, and if he's willing to come or give us at least the information, we can maybe include that.
Was I gonna review that? That was just a temporary at college.
Typically,
18 months.
trial, yeah, 18 months.
Well, it's 18 months.
Yeah.
They may make a determination before that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And they have to review, I think every 6 months, right? They have to do an assessment basically and give it out to the board about how it's going and how it looks and what's working, what's not working, kind of thing. So that's the way they set it up down there.
Tracy, when you say ARPA, are you referring to AARP, like?
Yeah,
the overall
Association
one?
for
Okay.
Retired Persons, I think
I was
that's what
thinking,
it's.
I have ARPA, the American Rescue.
Oh,
Plan.
yeah.
They have a
Too many,
program?
yeah, too many
right,
acronyms,
right.
yeah. Does anybody else have anything for next agenda? All right, then I would welcome a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting is November 13th, sorry. Now a motion to
One
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Dale? Second. Jessica, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
We're
you.
living down.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
Good info.
thank you.
Oh, yes?